he knocks her unconscious against a wall, and then he's like, "Look, let's give her justice." Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about The Nevers, Season 1, Episode 4, The Undertaking. Which is obviously, it's a double entendre. They are undertaking to discover the killer of Mary Brighton, but also we open with Mary Brighton's funeral, which might require an undertaker. Notably, Amalia True is not attending that funeral.
Yes.
We end with Mary Brighton's song being translated through Myrtle, which I thought, and we talked last week, I thought maybe Myrtle seemed to understand what was being said. So they find a way to translate Myrtle's translation, essentially.
Yes.
And we learned that the song was directed specifically, at least part of the song was directed specifically at Amalia.
Yeah.
We get confirmation that Amalia knows way more than she's disclosing,
Sure.
but that she has seemingly disclosed a bunch of information to Penance. Before we launch into anything specific, what were your thoughts, good sir, on episode 4?
It was interesting. The it sort of felt like narratively, after the death, in order to make that transition between the state of things before that and afterwards, I feel like this was there was a number of awkward scenes I felt that perhaps could have been standard another right. You know,
What would be one of those in particular?
Well, the whole now Annie and the doctor are talking about the state of what's going on, and Amalia and Penance come in and they're just talking about what they're going to do next. That was rather an odd scene, I felt.
Right, they're trying to pull Bonfire into this mix. Amalia wants to figure out who done it. Who was behind the killing of Mary Brighton, and so they kind of each go off in their little ways to try to decipher the truth. I guess what ends up happening is that we learn that it was indeed Masson who threw Lucy, the woman who can break stuff with her hands or whatever, who can shatter stuff. She was a spy for Masson.
Yeah.
And then he somehow orchestrated the thing where the guy was going to show up and shoot Mary. And as he put it, it was because she was a symbol of hope. And if you can destroy the symbol of hope, then you screw with the touched on some morale level because it's war. What was a little odd there was he has that conversation with Amalia. In the moment, I was like, well, from their conversation and the casual nature of it, and the fact that he lets her leave, that it's like that he didn't do it. That he was just theorizing, like, well, if I was going to do it, I'd do it this way. And then the fact that it seems to turn out that he, in fact, did it, it's just odd that, I don't know, I thought he would have been maybe more antagonistic toward Amalia, or like, I don't know.
I don't know.
What did you get out of all that?
Dramatically, here's how I think of it, though. I mean, one of the things that you often have is difficulty in having a protagonist and an antagonist in a room talking, because it's hard to believe. Like, wait a minute, they're right there. You can just kill them.
Yeah. Yes.
And so,
or arrest them or whatever.
One thing that I guess you could say that they established is, at least certainly for Amalia, killing him wouldn't do her very much good. He's part of a group, and the group would be after them, and
Sure.
It would make it difficult for her. But for him to do it, and maybe he doesn't like to get his hands dirty, but also though she established that because she was sort of there by the good graces of Lavinia, that you just can't take her out, and there's no reason for him other than because what he was doing, he's not announcing. So he wasn't like, it was me, and everybody knows. I just told 5 people outside the door. No. Yeah, so, it's like, okay, this is not a covert thing, so of course I'm not going to physically attack you, so.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. This was a small complaint, but it's obviously Amalia's power is this, one of her powers at least, is this power of prophecy.
Yes.
And so I assume that like once at least per episode, we're going to see this like, oh, I had a ripple and I saw something in the future, which then usually comes true by the end of the episode.
Yes.
Fine. Good. In this case, it felt a little shoehorned in. They were like, oh, look, I saw a future where I was talking to Masson, which is kind of what I wanted to do anyway. So I went to talk to Masson.
I don't know if you could say that's what's going on.
Okay, I mean, it's like if I went and I bought myself breakfast. I bought some muffins for breakfast, and then I had a vision of myself eating muffins. I'd be like, yeah, well, I was gonna eat muffins for breakfast. Thanks, vision. Like maybe something a little more revelatory that I mean, they want to go find the suspect. One of the big suspects is Masson. So It was probably in her mind to go talk to him anyway, but then she's like, well, I saw it, so I might as well do it. It's not I don't know. The use of the power in that way is like, oh, wow, oh, okay.
You could argue, I guess, that the reason why she comes to whatever prophecies she sees is because it's an alarming situation. Or you could just say it's random and there's no telling what she's going to see. Sometimes it should be, oh, here's my meal that I was going to end at the end of the day. Oh, I'm eating, soup.
Yeah. Like, for instance, if the vision had shown her somebody that wasn't a suspect, but then it ends up being somebody like, oh, for some reason I see myself in this, Jerry's house. I guess I'll go see Jerry. Then suddenly you're like, oh, why is this guy important? Oh, because the prophecy did it. As opposed to, here's a guy we suspected all along. Yep. All righty. I don't know.
I hear you.
All right. The moment when Lucy is discovered as the spy, it did seem genuine that Amalia was about to shoot her. And, kind of basically execute the spy as they're in wartime.
Right.
And it's only the fact that I guess that Lucy goes back for the little elephant pendant that Penance made her. That maybe somehow, like, in other words, that's meaningful to me. I wasn't just deceiving you guys the whole time. I'm trying to, maybe that's what saves her life. So instead, she just gets exiled. Like, you have to leave and never come back.
I guess that's possible. I mean, I just bought her. It's excuse of saying that, that Penance wouldn't like it, and I think she's right.
That's true. That's true. So in the fact-finding mission, Penance goes and talks to Augie Bidlow, Lavinia's brother.
Right.
She's very angry at him because he dismissed her in the previous episode. And they make up more or less.
Which I could have done without. Well, it wasn't that bad, but.
Oh, right, the bit where she. Right.
You confess. Oh, yeah, you confessed to killing her. What? What are you talking about?
Right. That never felt like an actual confession to the. Yeah. So they're back on good terms, but we didn't really see Lavinia maybe at all this episode. Right. Maybe she was at the funeral. But other than that, she's, considering I thought of her, and I still do, as like one of a boss level villain.
Sure.
They kind of push her aside for this episode. Malady gets arrested.
Yes.
The inspector gets in a fight with her. She tries to run away. He bashes her against a stone wall.
Yeah, good fight there.
What's interesting about that is it's like he knocks her unconscious against a wall, and then he's like, look, let's give her justice. Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
he just knocked her unconscious. Yes.
With our current levels of, apprehension, it should have had 3 or 4 guys on
That's
her.
true.
And him on her neck.
That's true.
By
the way, what is Malady's power?
I don't know.
I mean, she's charismatic, I guess. She has a following. But have we seen her do something? I don't know. I can't think of a other than be crazy. I don't know that I've seen her. Okay, we don't know what Malady's power is. Okay.
No, I don't think so. If someone else does, let us know.
That's right. She does have a very powerful minion and I don't know the guy's name, but it's the guy, he's the kind of a larger gentleman who, he's the one in the previous episode who led the Dr. Cousins to the carriage. In other words, she's hurt and she needs a doctor. And so she sends her minion out to go get Cousins. Well, I went back and rewatched that scene for reasons we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't get this in the moment because they were being so conversational. But that guy was basically, he was like Purple Manning, the Dr. Cousins. Like he can manipulate people with his words. Like, here's a carriage you would like to have. And I didn't remember ordering that. Oh, but you did, and here it is. Okay, thank you. And like, in other words, so he can make mental suggestions to people. Like,
that's interesting. I would think, though, that, I mean, it's interesting that he would couch it in something that didn't happen. When I saw that scene, I just assumed it was sort of like, here's an evil situation that is clearly a sign for you to talk to somebody who doesn't want to be known that they're talking to you.
I got you.
That's how I interpreted it initially.
That's kind of how I interpreted it first.
It just seems kind of weird that, like, if you want to express that someone should do what you want, you typically don't couch it. You show, like, step into this room. Okay, I'll step into the room.
I got you.
A little more overt with things like that. As opposed
so maybe just keep an eye out. You might be right. Maybe it was just they were being polite with each other, an etiquette thing. But I have a feeling that guy actually has a power to affect people's, manipulate people.
That could be. I mean, it's like, one thing I like about this is not everybody has like a more X-Men like power or whatever, It's like, oh, I turn things into glass and that's helpful. How? Like,
right. There's a woman breathing on grapes and turning them into glass.
Speak all these languages, but I can't. No one can understand me. Like, oh, that's weird, So yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's. I mean, as far as Myrtle, I get it. There are like aphasias and stuff that affect you in a similar way, but the idea that she can understand English but not communicate it is frustrating.
Yeah.
Like you would almost just want to say, like, okay, do you know the word town? Which she would, because she understands English. So she's like, okay, can you say the word town? And I guess she wouldn't. I guess she couldn't
she would
say
it
town.
in a different language.
Right. She couldn't just say the don't think of the word town. Just say that collection of syllables. Town. Can you do that?
Because one of the things I guess you would end up doing is like, we'll just write whatever language that she talks about. Okay, we've gone through town now.
Right.
And then you like all these dictionaries. Okay, which one? Okay, everybody look in the dictionaries.
So they end up grabbing all kinds of folks with the hope that one of them can figure out what language Myrtle is speaking, and it works eventually. And so they transcribe the song, which we'll talk about here in a second. You mentioned X-Men powers. One of the characters we meet works for the Beggar King, and he is Jack Nimble.
Yes.
Looks like
he works with. He doesn't.
Good point. He makes the point of like.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not an employee as much as like,
an independent agent.
Yeah, I'm a subcontractor. And it looks like he uses ice. Is that ice, or is it a zone of force? Or I can't tell.
I don't know.
Because he uses it to like as a stepping stone at one point to like step away. Which made me think, obviously, Jack be nimble, the nursery rhyme. But there's also, in Victorian times, there was this folklore, urban legend of Spring-Heeled Jack.
Oh.
Who was this character that was, ne'er-do-well, but he was known for, like, basically leaping impossibly high. So just kind of, when he leaped away like that, I thought, that might be a little reference to Spring-Heeled Jack. Who knows? But he seems to be this antithesis of Bonfire, right? He can block her powers with his. We see in a trailer, it looks like she's shooting fire at him, and he's blocking it with his circles, his discs. I think the big question that lingers, especially at the end of this episode, when we hear that the song was intended for Amalia, and she's crying at the idea that, like, you're not alone. the big question is who is she? We now know that she is hiding some big secrets, and I kind of went back, because some of this dialogue goes by pretty quickly. I kind of had to go back and refresh my memory on some what I think of now are pretty key bits of dialogue that demonstrate this person who's bigger or knows more than she's letting on. Just for starters, I went back to kind of verify that, okay, indeed, she had apparently spent time in an asylum, maybe the asylum. That's maybe where she met Malady, right? Because Malady, when the episode where Malady, Dr. Cousins comes to the carriage, the dialogue's a little cagey, but when I went back and listened to it, I think what they're saying is Cousins worked at the asylum, and Malady doesn't really remember him, but she remembered that there was a black guy with a top hat and at the asylum. So it's possible that Dr. Cousins, Malady, and Amalia all met at the asylum. There's the line, I went back and let me read it verbatim. It's when Amalia is talking to Malady, and she says, she calls her Sarah, first of all. So Malady's real name is Sarah.
Sure. But
she says, Sarah, I didn't know what happened to you. And then Malady responds, what happened? You fed me to them. I'm sorry I didn't have a choice. And she said, oh, because you had a mission. Yeah, well, God gave me a mission too. Then later on, the mission, Sarah, it needs them, not me, not you. Anyway, what I get out of that is, you fed me to them, I didn't have a choice. It sounds like maybe Amalia, she gets her gift from, the passing ship, whatever, 3 years earlier. She maybe adopts this other personality that maybe is inside her, perhaps, and people think you're crazy. All right, put you in an institution. And so, similarly, Malady's there too. She meets Malady. And maybe at some point she realizes, if I keep saying, oh yeah, I've been alive for a long time and I have a mission and they're just going to keep me here. So I'll just stop saying that. And so in some ways she betrayed Malady. Maybe Malady was saying similar stuff. I have a mission too. Yep, you're right. We're both on a mission. This woman's crazy. Not me though. And so maybe that's where the split happens, where Amalia had to pretend, no, you're right. I was misguided temporarily, and I'm sorry. Can I get out now? And then
so your theory is that both Amalia and Malady are consciousnesses in other people's bodies?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Part of the reason for that, too, is there's a line when the Beggar King puts a knife up to Amalia's face. I think maybe it's episode 2. And she goes, this isn't my face. That's an interesting line. You're like, okay. Right. We also get a few lines where she's talking. As I say, I think she's filled Penance in on everything. In fact, I think there was an interview with the actress who plays Penance who said, Amalia's told Penance a lot of stuff that she hasn't told other folks. And so she says to Penance, I was left here completely alone with nothing but a mission I was never actually given. No orders, no directives. They left me here. And that's an interesting bit where it's okay, again, I'm being left with something. She assumes she has a mission. She's mentioned it a couple of times. And so I just don't know where in the timeline that mission started. Was she already a person who had that mission and then went suicidal and so jumped in the river? Or did she get this mission when the ship...
what you're saying makes sense. And I certainly think it's more likely that that's what occurred. It especially squares with... like that event that we saw wherein she drowns. Maybe she was dead at that point, and
right, maybe the vessel that
entered into her, and it's really somebody else in that body. And I hadn't squared that event with everyone else who was touched. I was just thinking that perhaps Malady is crazy because her host wasn't dead.
Okay.
So it's like the two minds are fighting or whatever.
So the translation of Mary's song is it says, "You're not alone, Amalia, my lonely soldier." And then they say, "Oh, and something about wearing stripes." I'm assuming that's related to the soldier line, like, stripes. Maybe she, captain. I don't know.
I don't know.
It says, "I didn't leave you. I went inside the city. I was damaged, incomplete. I had to heal. Soon we will all be ready, but it's dark. There's a darkness." Then the next part apparently is to everyone, to all of us, to gather and protect each other because of the dark. Find me. Let them help, those who will, but come below and find me. Come before the dark, and we can save... ... So some entity that Amalia thought had abandoned her didn't actually abandon her.
Right.
And so where they were hurt, and they're now below ground. Now maybe it has something to do with this, the glowing orb that Lavinia's found. Maybe that's like an egg, like the entity is regenerating inside the orb, or maybe the consciousness of someone is inside that orb. But that could be, since it is also underground, I get the feeling that maybe that's where they need to go in order to find this individual. And I think we're left with the notion, like, they're like, who is this? Who are we talking about? Any idea who in relation to Amalia this might be? Amalia does say she's a widow. We've never heard of her husband.
You're suggesting, if it's not anybody that we already know, I don't have any suspicions.
I don't think it's somebody we know.
I feel like it's somebody that we haven't seen before.
Right. Like, in other words, could it possibly be someone who might be considered a husband to her, maybe? Or maybe that's why she calls herself a widow. I'll say this. I don't want this to be time travel. I don't want the Terminator, hey, dystopian future, go back to the past to fix it. I don't want that, but I'll say that there is a little clue that maybe they're heading in that direction when Penance is admonishing Amalia for not showing up at the funeral. Like, hey, you didn't come to Mary Brighton's funeral. Everybody noticed. It was a bad thing. And Amalia says, we don't do that when I'm from. We don't have enough time, and we don't have enough ground. And that's an interest. First of all, when I'm from, and then they don't have enough ground. And if you were just to translate that, shot in the dark, it's a future time when they actually are maybe in space. Maybe they don't have Earth to bury people in. The when I'm from, I'm like, So, anyway, I hope it's not time travel. I don't want it to be that, but they could be leaning towards that.
It could. We think you don't like any time travel stories.
There are. Time travel can be done well. I enjoyed the first Terminator movie. I was all over it. Okay. It's just once there was the Terminator 2, 3, 4, when it started being like, oh, you went back and fixed things, but then you broke something else, and you left the arm behind. Well, now the arm created the thing, and like, oh, but we get the arm, but then doing that, we created another. Like, no, stop. It's like no story has any consequence anymore. You just go back in time again. But that said, Endgame did time travel interestingly. I was way in on that storyline, so it can be done.
Okay.
It can be done. It just gets tricky.
We've done it all here.
Yes.
I think you were saying that they're going to do this season in sections or something.
Yeah. So 6 episodes, and then take a break, and then they're going to do another 6 episodes to beat the whole season.
Yeah, so that'll be fine, I think.
That said, too, I noticed Amalia True, the actress who plays Amalia True, said episode 6 is where a whole bunch of revelations happen. Yeah. Kind of tease you in for what comes next.
Yeah, and really that's perhaps where you'll see the scope. For me, there's potential that if it is time travel, that where that character or characters come from, it's not going to be quite as connected the way that Terminator is, for instance. If they're doing it the way that they did in Endgame, which is not you go into back in time for a very targeted purpose to get something for yourself so you can go back home. If it's end up being a byproduct of like, oh, whoops, this is just all this stuff is just a weird coincidence. It's not what we intended. I'd be fine with a character being stuck back in time and sort of like what Connecticut and King Yankee's Court or whatever, where it's just an adventure. Although then that would suggest it would be out of So I don't mind someone from the future if it's not like, if they don't have an objective that is attempting to change something, I guess.
It does seem like she has an objective, right? This mission she keeps talking about. You're not
right. But if somebody was there and she had to save them, or somebody,
I got you.
As opposed to now the future is supposed to
Right,
change.
we've changed the future now. Yeah, I got you. Hugo Swan, the club wasn't really in this, but I guess Hugo himself was. The inspector comes and, because the inspector finds a card with a swan on it that was apparently used to incite the group called the Purists to go and harass the funeral.
Yes.
And so, basically...
Frank Mundy goes over there and it's like, oh, what did you do? And like, I didn't have anything to do with this.
And I believe him. I feel like someone was trying to set him up, to make it look like, oh, just put a swan on it and they'll think it's that guy. I liked the fact that they were playing chess with cheese and he was like, oh, we call it cheese. It's a funny little line. We also do see this, again, they're trying to show some of the political developments happening in London. You've got an attempted union, basically, where they're like, look, we're organizing because you're making us move bombs, and that's more dangerous, so we'd like more pay. And we see Masson show up and be like, get out of here, you. I'd have more respect if you came to me as individuals instead of having to hide behind each other. Like, okay. So, I'm the jerk, is what he's basically saying.
Yeah. I would have more respect for you if you came to me individually and gave up all your bargaining power.
Right. It would be much better.
I would respect you then.
Yes. If you could just be easily beaten, that would be awesome for me. But they back down, and he's like, look, get back to work, you. And so he represents the status quo, right? I think in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And so he's trying to also keep the touched in their place. And he does, at the moment, he does seem to be kind of the big power, the villain, let's say. But again, don't give up on Lavinia. I think Lavinia's she's a villain in some different way.
Yeah.
Come on back for episodes 5 and 6. Thanks as always, Paul. Appreciate it, good sir.
You're welcome.
And we will talk next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.